This is a spaceship, a virtual spaceship, for travelling in time, fueled up and ready to go. Let's blast off on a journey to the Time Warp Tavern, a friendly pub with a difference. Join Russell and Laurence there as they revisit their experiences of life as two young boys growing up in the 1960s.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
What will they be talking about today?
Yes. Oh, they always knew.
Yeah.
But I think my dad decided.
Yeah.
Was there a celebrity in the advert?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, there's a cartoon picture of two boys.
Yeah, sounds familiar. But at that time, we were just starting to see a huge choice in the range of things to buy.
Yeah.
We were entering an era of consumer goods.
Yes.
I was just thinking the 60s, you know, it was like the age of the gadget, wasn't it, in a way?
Gadgets were the thing, weren't they?
It was that sort of period, wasn't it, when, you know, labour-saving devices and
Labour saving.
appliances were coming in. So you got things which would do things easier, faster, better, you know, those kind of things. New was the thing, wasn't it? Everything had to be new.
Yes, it was all about the latest ingredients, selling a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is, isn't it, really?
Yeah, very much.
That sort of stuff exploded in the 60s. It was almost like once they got far enough away from like wartime, they didn't have any sort of crisis to sort of think about anymore. So it was focus on how can we make life simpler for people.
Yeah.
Because they were luxury items, weren't they, really?
Well, they were.
To make life easier. And not necessities, were they?
Oh, no, not at all.
It was at that time, wasn't it, in the 60s, when ways of shopping were starting to change.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes.
one thing we had, you used to see these ads for like this mysterious thing at the time, you know, mail order shopping catalogues full of consumer products.
Oh, well, I mean, my mum was a great one for catalogues.
Was she?
Yeah, Grattan's
Yeah.
was one.
Littlewoods, K's. There was ones like Freeman's, wasn't there? They were
Freeman's,
a big thing.
yes. And of course, I'd go to the toy section and drool over the things that I knew we couldn't afford to have.
Oh, yeah. But I used to think they were these mysterious, massive great thing, weren't they? Like a phone directory. Really
They were huge,
Yeah.
very glossy.
They sort of illustrated the high life, didn't they, those catalogues, you know?
Yeah, and there'd be blokes probably in their mid-30s wearing powder blue action slacks and lace-back driving gloves.
Oh, I remember those, yeah.
And always pointing into the middle distance.
Yeah,
Pointing at a yacht,
that's right,
and his mate's got a pair of binoculars.
Yeah.
It was a bit like the old Martini adverts, wasn't it? It was selling you a dream. You're kind of James Bond on a skiing holiday.
That's right, yeah.
And you couldn't have a half a mild,
No.
could you? It'd have to be a Cinzano and lemonade.
Yeah. So your mum actually used them then? She actually bought things from catalogues?
Do you know, I don't know whether she actually bought anything.
All right.
But it was just nice to have the catalogue, wasn't it?
Oh, so she used to order the catalogues and you'd look through them?
I'd spend hours looking through the catalogues. And of course, I'd always probably have a little look in the lingerie section.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that looks like my Auntie Violet. Why is she not wearing a dress?
My mum didn't buy anything from catalogues, you know, but I used to be intrigued by it because you'd see the ads for them on television, that fill in the coupon in your TV Times or whatever,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was always...
Or the coupon that came through your door.
That's right, it came
Yeah.
through your door, which we didn't get. We never got them through our door.
No, that's true.
Because that was one thing we didn't get much of in those days. We didn't get loads of sort of junk mail. But mail order catalogues, that was kind of like the forerunner to like internet shopping in a way, wasn't it? Because you were buying it like not in person.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There were a lot of gimmicks though, weren't there? And another thing they used to do, there were often, you know, special offers or things you could collect, you know, off of packets, you know, to get you to buy more stuff.
Oh, yeah. OXO cubes, there's a little competition. And if you opened up your box of OXO cubes,
Right.
there was like a noughts and crosses thing in the lid.
Oh, right.
And if you had three crosses in a row, you wrote in and claimed a prize.
I think I can remember that actually. Yeah.
So after dark one evening, I snuck down into the shop with my torch.
Mm-hmm.
And I very carefully took out each OXO cube box, carefully opened it, checked whether there was a line of crosses.
Yeah.
And then if it wasn't, I closed it up and put it back. And I don't know how many boxes there were, but there must have been at least 100 there.
Full marks for persistence then.
And I just very, very carefully went through every single one. And not one of them.
Oh.
It was a bit like Batman cards.
Oh,
They'd
yeah.
always hold one back, wouldn't they?
It just shows you, doesn't it? I wonder how many OXO packets you'd have had to go through, though, to actually find one that had the right combination.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to go in for competitions and things off the backs of packets, but I don't think I could ever remember winning anything, or getting anything for nothing, anything free.
Well, my friend Stuart, who's always been mad on Tunnock's caramel wafers, and I think recently they passed the record of having manufactured so many million of them.
Really?
Or billion, I don't
Tunnock.
know. And he just sent them a letter and said, I've enjoyed your caramel wafers all my life. Congratulations on reaching 100 million or however many it was. And he got a reply, and it was a big box full of Tunnock wafers.
Do they make
Same
anything
thing.
else, or is that just the only thing they make?
I'm not aware that they make anything else.
Well, they've done well in that case, haven't they, to last all that time, That was an easy way to get free samples, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose one of the first luxury consumer products which really transformed everything were fridges and freezers.
Oh, yeah. I think the original fridges tended to be gas-driven, didn't they?
They were, yeah. I used to look at American TV series, and like every household seemed to have a fridge and a freezer.
And they're huge as well,
They were
weren't
huge, weren't they?
Yeah.
Our one was a little thing, it was just waist height, the first one.
I don't think we got one of those until we moved into the shop. That would have been 60s.
Mm.
I used to make my own ice lollies.
Oh, yeah. Ice lollies.
And you had this plastic kind of mould thing, and you had this juice, and you'd pour it in. And then you had these tiny little cardboard rolled up sticks, and you push it through a hole, and then you stick that in the freezer.
That's right. Yeah, I remember those.
And
they were okay, but I used to think, why can't they make something which allows us to make ice lollies exactly as you get them in the shops?
Yeah.
With a proper stick in it.
Proper stick. And the actual nice flavour as well.
Yeah. The fridges in those days, I mean, they didn't even have a freezer in them, did they? Just had an ice box. Do you remember?
That's right. And it would get totally covered in frost, and that's very true. There's a little box at the top, wasn't it, usually?
You could get like an ice tray in there and possibly a packet of frozen peas and some fish fingers, and that would be about it.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, if you didn't have a fridge in those days, it was really hard to keep things like leftovers, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's one of these TV chefs on at the moment. Can't remember his name.
Well, they're all interchangeable, aren't they?
And he sort of says, I'm going to show you how you can make something really, really cheap just with leftovers from what you've had over the weekend.
Right.
So he opens up the fridge and says, so what we got in here? Oh, well, we've got 2 fillets of Scotch salmon.
Right, yeah.
Got some truffles. You know, got some guava here.
Just happened to have left over.
Yeah. A little bit of prime sirloin steak left over. And then he'll knock something up.
Knock something up, yeah. That's what I mean. Back in the old days, you wouldn't have had a fridge to put all those leftovers in, would you? But in the past, if you had one of these cookery programs on, like Fanny Craddock or something like that, she'd be completely out of touch with what the ordinary housewife would be doing at home. So she'd put on this kind of really elaborate spread of fancy, prissy dinner party fare.
Yeah.
You know, if you were going to make one of these sort of sophisticated dinner parties that the TV chefs suggested, you'd be doing it for days because you didn't have all the labour-saving devices you got now.
No.
In those days, it all had to be done by hand in real time.
Yeah.
And also, there's less prepared food on sale in the shops in those days.
Indeed, yeah. And there wouldn't have been a fridge to leave it cold in overnight.
That's right, yeah.
So it'd all have to be done on the day.
Yeah. We didn't get our first fridge until 1970, and it was a second-hand one.
Oh.
And I remember going with my mum to buy it, advertised in, I think it was Exchange and Mart, actually.
Exchange and Mart.
Yeah. And it was in Crouch End. I remember us going on the bus to get it, and then it was delivered later in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we had a fridge, I can remember my nan, you know, if it was in the middle of a hot summer, to keep things like milk and butter cold, she would put it in a bowl in the sink, you know, with water around it. And the bottle of milk would be there, and she'd put like a cloth over the top and let the tap drip on it very slightly. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to sort of keep things cold. Because other than that, you had the larder, didn't you?
You had the larder, yeah, or the pantry.
Yeah. I mean, the pantry was full of preserves and non-perishables, wasn't it?
Tins of stuff, Coleman's mustard, powder form, oxo cubes for luncheon meat.
They were like the convenience foods of the day, weren't they? Things which possibly would last for months, even years.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things in there, by the look of them, had been in there for years, you know?
Well, there's no such thing as sell-by dates then, was there?
Remember Camp Coffee?
I remember Camp Coffee, yes.
Everyone at home's got percolator or grind the beans from scratch now, can't you, at home?
Yeah.
Back then, that would be something that they'd only do in Brazil. I can remember we had around the house lots of little gadgets that went with those products to cut them up or make the most of them, you know.
We had a device for slicing boiled eggs.
Oh, yes.
It looked like a hole, and you had this like a mesh thing.
Yes.
And you'd pull it over and clamp it down.
Yes,
and
I remember
and it
it.
would slice it.
Yeah, same sort of principle to like cutting cheese on a wire sort of thing.
Yeah.
Talking about coffee and tea, though. Tea's made.
Oh, it was a bit of a status symbol, wasn't it?
For my mum, when I was growing up, that was the epitome of good living.
Yeah.
If you look at a game show from that time, like Generation Game, and they give you a very good idea of the sort of things that people consider desirable.
Like a hostess trolley.
Hostess trolley, yeah, that's right, yeah.
And take your pick, yeah. There was always that bit where he'd say the contestant had answered about 2 questions or 3 questions correctly, and they come up to the last one.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Smith, any prizes you got eyes on this evening? Oh, I'd like the nuclear-powered washing machine. And then it's, oh, I'm very sorry about that. But let's see what you would have won. It's the worst thing you can do to somebody.
I know, rub it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Washing machines were one of the ultimate consumer products, weren't they, to make life easier back in the 60s?
Well, yeah.
I suppose at one time, like something like a mangle would have been a labour-saving device, wouldn't it?
Well, I suppose
rather than rub the clothes with a stone by the river, you know. I mean, which is where it came from, wasn't it, originally?
Really, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, washing machines really, they transformed, didn't they, in the 60s? Spin dryers, spinner rinse.
My mum had a Hot Point washing machine.
Oh, yeah.
Top loader, and it had this big plastic sort of drum thing where it was like a cone, really.
Yeah.
With sort of like paddles on it. And it would twist one way and then twist the other way.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
And then once every month or so, as a treat, right? This is a treat.
Mm-hmm.
At the back of the washing machine was a little red screw.
Yeah.
And if you had a tanner, there's a little slot in it, and you'd get a cup, unscrew the red screw, screw it all the way out, and the excess water inside over a while would build up, would run out. And I regarded that as a little treat to be allowed to let the water out.
You actually asked to do that, did you?
Yeah, I felt like a sort of a NASA engineer. And I was fixing everything. Russell, can you let off the excess water? Oh, yeah.
Did you have a white overall on while you were doing it?
In my mind, I did, yeah.
I've just got this idea of you sort of thinking that you were actually doing something really important.
Oh, yeah. It is a privilege.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mum, I'll sort this out. I might only be 7.
Yeah.
Soap powders were a big thing, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Everything had to be whiter than everything else.
Whiter than white. Until Omo came along.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
And then it was so white, it's almost blue. Remember that one?
Yeah, the idea of getting things really, really white. It's a working class thing, wasn't it? We'd only had, not so long before that, the end of the age where you couldn't take cleanliness for granted.
Yes. Everything was so very technical, wasn't it? Because everything up until then had been pretty much sort of hand washed. And the other thing that always helped would be if there was some special ingredient that had like a chemical code. Like, so now contains XA42YZ.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I better buy that then.
I remember when Ariel came in, because that was the first biological one, wasn't it?
Ariel, yeah.
Do you remember it was a big thing at the time that it was a bit controversial about were biological washing powders, you know, completely safe?
Yeah.
Once the clothes were washed, though, there was all sorts of gadgets to try and help you dry them off, wasn't there?
We had a Flatley in my bedroom.
What's that?
It was like an air heater, and it had these wooden slats going across the top. Looked like a refrigerator. If you'd had some clothes washed, you would put them in the Flatley, and the hot air would dry them out. It was like an alternative to the washing line.
Sounds like something else I've seen, actually, but it wasn't called that.
I think Flatley was like a brand name. I don't know who made it. But it was right next to my bed. I remember it being very, very hot if you put a shirt in there or something.
But the other major consumer product was vacuum cleaners.
Yeah.
Considering they were supposed to make life easier, I mean, they were quite labour intensive and you were always continually cleaning them out, disassembling them and stuff, you know. putting all these different bits together to form the piping.
Very much, yeah. You know, the old-fashioned type of vacuum cleaners, like a cylindrical shaped thing with a long tube coming out one end.
Yeah, look like the cover of Tubular Bells.
Yeah. I remember if you wanted to clean the vacuum cleaner out, you disconnected the hose and then you'd open it up and take the bag out and everything. And when my mum took the hose off, I found that if you rolled marbles down it, it made this really nice kind of echoey sound.
Right.
So I used to sit there rolling marbles down the tube and just listening to the sound. And the other thing I just remembered, which I probably haven't thought about for well over 40 years,
Right.
is that one of my jobs, when my mum was emptying the vacuum cleaner, you know the actual brush bit that contacts the car?
Yeah.
And you got all these bristles. And so my job was to get hold of that bit on the end and get a needle and take out all the bits of fluff between the bristles, a bit like cleaning your teeth. And I used to do that and then it'd all go back in.
That was your job, was it?
That was my job.
You had a colourful childhood, didn't you?
Yeah.
They did streamline some of the vacuum cleaners later on, though, didn't they? With retractable hoses and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Vacuum cleaners didn't look like that until then, did they?
No, you'd have to do shake and vac with that, wouldn't you?
Shake and vac, yeah. I think they had an uphill struggle to try and convince people that it was a sensible idea to actually throw powder onto your dirty floor, to actually add to the mess in order to clean it up again, you know.
But what I used to be really impressed with, though, was Flash. You know the little Scottish woman in the adverts?
Oh, yes.
They would do the thing where they had 2 bits of lino with like checkerboard pattern, and then they covered both of them in grease or something, and then 2 housewives had to clean each of them, and the little Scottish woman would clean hers really quickly.
That really impressed you, did it?
So it's like an auntie, and I used to think, oh, that's brilliant, I'd love to have one of those. Well, I mean, there's a whole load of products there, isn't there? I mean, like Dot,
That's right, yeah, Dot.
Harpic.
Domestos.
Lots of companies have their own brands now, don't they?
I just wonder these days, you know, whether there are as many different brands of things as there used to be. But they're probably all made by the same company and just branded for the company who's asking for them.
Yeah.
As the 60s progressed, things were starting to become miniaturised, weren't they? You know.
Yeah.
And that provided opportunities for more gadgets and products, didn't it?
Well, we had a little labour-saving device which would come out every Christmas, and it was for crushing nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Have you got like hazelnuts?
Yes.
And it was like an aluminium thing with like a screw that came down
Oh, I remember those.
with a little cap. And
Yeah.
you get that over the nut and you just keep twisting and
Yeah.
eventually you crack the nut.
Yes. You could do something like that.
They were tin openers.
Yeah. Because there are no ring pulls, if you wanted to drink a can of Coke out, you'd have to take something with you to open it.
You'd have to do a hole on both sides of the can, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was one to let the air in, wasn't it? And one to let the liquid out.
Yes. Here's a little labour-saving device. My dad would be in the shop. He had one of these devices,
Yeah.
the one that takes the cans off the top shelf with
Yeah.
a pincer at the top
Yes, I remember
and a
those.
little squeeze grip at the bottom.
Like a sort of clamp, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I used to just spend hours taking stuff off the top shelf, putting it down, and picking it up and putting it back again, see if I could get it back on
Must have pleased your dad.
the kitchen then. Electric tin lid remover.
Yes.
The really dangerous one
Yeah.
was if you had a tin of Libby's corned beef
Oh, yeah.
and they had that key on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And there's a little tab.
Yeah. It took the top and a bit of the side off, didn't
It
it?
took a strip off of it.
Yeah.
And then you had to prise the top open. If you're not careful,
And it was razor
it
sharp.
was razor sharp.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Absolutely
Oh.
deadly.
And then there's the other sort of tin opener as well, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
You know, the ones where one's got a prong on it and then there's a corkscrew bit that folds out.
Oh, yeah,
You know
yeah,
those?
yeah.
They've got several different functions.
Right,
And we had one
yeah.
of those for years.
And of course, whose life wouldn't be complete without a penknife?
Oh, yeah, penknife,
With all the
yeah.
various
Yeah,
corkscrew.
yeah.
How often were you going to use that?
Well, there was sort of thing you used in your teens when you used to go to parties because you wanted to open beers or Party 7 cans. didn't you?
Party 7, yeah.
It was really very easy for kids to buy penknives in shops in those days as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, you could just go into like a newsagent's and they'd have them like on a piece of card, wouldn't they?
yeah.
You know, occasionally you might get an inquiring assistant, you know, asking you what you wanted that for.
Hmm.
They'd say you're a bit young for that, but, you know, you could buy them, couldn't you, just like that?
Yes. We did buy, was it the Kenwood knife sharpener?
Yes, there was one. Yeah, that's right.
But I think it's battery operated.
Battery operated. And we never had anything like that, but they were always given the hard sell, those kind of things, weren't they?
Yes, they were. It was
Wasn't
all
it?
about the marketing, wasn't it? The 70s was probably the worst time for the really cheap and nasty labour-saving devices, which you had to
Yeah.
pay a fortune for. Do you remember the, I don't know what they called it, but a thing for cutting your hair?
Oh,
And it was-
yeah.
It was just like a plastic square thing
Yeah.
with a sort of like a razor blade on each end with little...
Like a tooth comb sort of
tooth,
thing.
yes. And
Yeah.
you kind of glide it through your hair.
I do remember that.
I can't remember who made it, but it's probably Ronco.
Ronco, yeah, that's just what I was going to say, yeah.
And I used to use this to try and do my hair like Rod Stewart,
Oh, did you?
just to get like that feathered effect. You know?
Yeah.
It probably cost them 2p to make, and they'd charge you 10 shillings probably.
And it used to tear your hair out, didn't it? It wasn't very subtle. It used to hurt.
And also,
Yeah.
the same company probably produced that, remember that thing for removing fluff off your clothes?
Yes.
It's like a plastic brush,
Yes.
white, with a red velvet thing on it, and it had a red arrow on it so you could turn it around.
Because there used to be TV ads for that, didn't it?
Mm.
And it was like, available boots, Timothy White's, Woolworths, John Lewis's, Robert Dyce.
Yeah. Somebody bought us for Christmas, I think, a salt and pepper pot,
Yeah.
but with batteries in it.
Batteries.
And you press the button and it grinds the pepper for you.
Right.
And there's a light on the underside as well. So it lights up what you're putting the pepper on.
Right.
So what is the point of that?
Well, that's odd, isn't it? Yeah.
Unless you're eating in the dark.
Well, that's the epitome of... We've got so much non-essential stuff, haven't we?
I think they invent things just for the sake of it now, don't they?
Yeah.
If you think about, for
Yeah.
example, when I was working at Mercedes-Benz, I knew the moment when they'd gone too far with modern developments.
Oh, right.
Because I got in the car one day, and one of the gimmicks in it was it had a heated steering wheel.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I thought, all that energy they put into making this, they could have been put towards getting a cure for cancer.
Quite right. But these days, something like that would be considered unethical, wouldn't it? Probably think of all the energy that it would
Well, it
waste.
probably would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably would be.
Now, nowadays, there's a sort of trade-off between businesses creating something new as a gimmick to get people's money and being seen to be creating things which don't destroy the environment.
Yeah.
You get a lot of stuff in houses these days. They're talking about heating. You get like underfloor heating and stuff like that, don't you?
Well, of course, all we had was paraffin heater in the kitchen.
Boom, 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 boom. It's so blue.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We had electric fires, most rooms. Electric fires with bars,
Yeah. And, of course, there was a coal fire in the front room. And that was-
Yes.
And then everywhere else in the house was freezing cold.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, you only used one room at a time, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you heated the room that you were in, basically.
Yeah.
We had a real fire up until I was about 7 or 8. We had a particularly cold winter. And after that, my parents, they knocked it on the head, because you've got to clear out the hearth every morning and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And all the ashes.
Yeah.
And they bought themselves a gas fire, and they said it was the best bit of money they ever spent.
Ah. Because by the fire, there'd be a few labour-saving devices, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
You'd have the hearth brush
Yes. Pair of tongs to pick up stray bits of coal.
and a poker.
Poker, yeah.
And a fire guard.
Fire guard, yeah. So whatever new thing people invent, like a new concept, like a electric fire or something, there's always a load of gadgets to sort of cater for, maintaining or looking after it, sort of supplements which ride on the back of that, Somebody sees like a pound sign, I think we can create something here to go with that. For instance, transistor radios. You need batteries, don't you?
Yes, of course. Well, you had Everready, Vidor,
Yeah.
and do you remember Berec batteries? BEREC. The logo was very similar to Everready,
I do remember them, yeah.
but one of my teachers at school told us that Berec stood for British Everready Export Company. So it was it was Everready.
There was another battery company called Flying Bomb.
Oh, I remember them. Oh, I can see it now. I can see the bomb with the wings coming out the side.
Yeah, they were a bit of a cheapo brand, I seem to remember,
Yeah.
because we bought some and the batteries didn't last that long.
But then you put them in the oven, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
we were always baking batteries, yeah. It did the trick, though.
Yeah.
That was another gadget, I suppose, really, because when I was quite young, I used to have a toy record player, and that used to really use up quite a lot of batteries.
when we got a Philips cassette recorder, I was constantly using it. And when I was lucky enough to go around to the electric shop to get some new batteries, I remember the excitement I would have. And the little battery meter used to go right up into the green area, which told you had loads of power left. And do you remember when the batteries used to leak all the acid and it'd go bubbly and white?
Yeah, and batteries weren't cheap in those days, were they? You know,
No.
I mean, that was something that only really came in about that time, wasn't it? That some appliances would run off of the mains or batteries.
Yeah, it would have been far more cost effective just to plug it into the mains.
I was selling it on a novelty value, really, weren't they? You know, it's like you can actually take this out of doors with you.
What about torches? Did you ever have a torch?
Yeah, another thing that used batteries was the cycle lamp as well. Did you used to have a
Oh
cycle
God,
lamp?
yeah. Now the cycle lamp was the one that would take the double battery with a bit across the top. It was like a little fork, and you'd slide it down onto the.
Yeah, they were quite a handy little gadget for playing with as children, actually, because, you know, at night when it was dark, we would all take our cycle lamps off our bikes and play at things like we'd be the police searching for a wanted criminal with torchlights or something. You know?
Or you pretend to be a ghost or something.
That's right, yeah.
Did you ever use a clothes peg to hold a playing card against the rear spokes on the wheel to make it sound like a motorbike?
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, that was a sort of homemade gadget, wasn't it? Yeah. And sometimes the pegs used to get caught in the spokes of the wheel, didn't they?
Yeah.
I can remember my parents sort of like seeing me do that. I used to put clothes pegs on. I think they were just mystified why I want to do that, you know.
And do you remember the worst thing you could ever do? Remember, boys' bikes always used to have a crossbar.
Yeah.
But girls' bikes didn't have a crossbar. And if you were ever seen riding a girl's bike...
Oh, yeah. Oh. Now, do you remember there was a big promotion for a new type of bike in the late 60s?
The Molten Deluxe, was it?
Well, that was one of them, yeah.
I remember a friend of mine his parents were quite posh, had a Molten Mini.
They're the ones that folded up.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing you would imagine Twiggy riding. Well, I remember, I think it was 1972 actually. My parents bought me a racing bike and I was really excited.
Oh, yeah.
Now, at the time, Claude Butler was the one to have. So if you had a Claude Butler, I mean, that was really creme de la creme. But mine wasn't Claude Butler, but it looked very similar. But it was called Edwards. But the word Edwards was spelt with an E on the end, so it was Edward E-S at the end.
I remember that, actually,
Remember that?
yeah.
And I remember thinking, well, what I've got here, it's not an Edwards bike, it's an Edwardes. And I thought it just gave it that little extra little bit of oomph. It made it a bit like Simon Templar's version of an Edwards bike.
Actually, probably one of the ultimate consumer products, we're talking about 1960s, cars.
Yeah.
Motoring was like, it was a leisure pursuit. There were seemingly no drawbacks involved with it, no environmental cost,
No.
nothing at all. You could go down that country lane and go for a spin.
Go for a spin, yeah.
And you weren't made to feel guilty about it either.
No, it's a bit like going on holiday for the afternoon.
Yeah.
You could get away, get out of your normal environment. So we used to go for a drive on Sunday afternoon. My dad, he had a crank handle, no seatbelts, no head restraint.
No. I mean, there was far less traffic, for one thing, and so probably less tailbacks.
When we were growing up in the early 60s, I think there were 2 or 3 cars in the entire street. And in those days, you used to spend more time with your head under the bonnet fixing things than you did driving it.
Yeah, that was an option then, wasn't it? Because cars weren't so sophisticated that you didn't have to get somebody out with a laptop to do a diagnostic on it either.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do it yourself now. You can't tinker, can you?
Yeah. So you're always tinkering with the car.
Yeah. And of course, then you had all the associated products, you know, that went with cars. You know, they could sell you those as well, you know, like motor oil and petrol and cleaning fluids and tyre pumps.
Oh, God, yeah. Shell oil.
Yeah.
And the nodding dog in the back window.
That's right. I've got a tiger in my tank.
Oh, I remember those. I remember
That
the
was a
sticker.
big campaign, wasn't it? You used to get these like furry tails. You could pick them up
That's
at
right.
petrol stations, didn't you? You used to hang them over your bike handlebars, didn't you?
That was a brilliant advertising campaign. That worked superbly well.
Yeah, went on for quite a few years, didn't it?
And of course the rust filler, because all cars suffered from rust in those days, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Most cars going around had a grey patch on the side. They'd filled it in, but then finished it off.
I remember seeing cars quite a lot that had been touched up. They'd probably just painted it by hand, hadn't they? One sort of luxury item which came on the market in the 60s, Polaroid swinger.
Oh, the Polaroid.
That's it.
Unfortunate name.
Yeah,
But yes, and
Yeah.
the idea that you could take a photograph and see the results
straight
within
away.
seconds.
Exactly, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Because my parents had one of those old cameras, not a box brownie, but a bit like that,
Yeah.
with a little lens that you flipped up. The idea about taking an instant photograph, we didn't have to have it developed in a
Yeah.
chemist.
Amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was quick, wasn't it? Was it £9.19 and 6 or something like that? I seem to remember a TV ad for it. So it was basically £10.
£10.
Another thing that came on the market, cine cameras.
Yeah,
Home movies
Yeah.
started to take
Yeah.
off in the 60s, didn't they?
very much so. Yeah, my dad, I think he saved up a load of Green Shield stamps
Mm.
and bought this camera.
Yeah.
And he bought a projector to show films on. And a lot of it is just us in the garden or on holiday. I've still got most of it. Got this film of me actually cutting the lawn with my dad. I'm about 5 years old, I suppose. So he's holding the handles and I'm sort of guiding him.
So you're thinking you're
I'm
helping
sort of-
and you're just actually hindering him.
I think, yeah. I think I'm steering it.
I mean, I used to always think, I wish we had a sort of like cine camera. I'd love to have taken like movies when we were on holiday, but we didn't have one.
Well, I think the
Yeah.
most valuable bit of footage he took was
Yeah.
it was just a Sunday afternoon drive
Mm.
going from where we lived in Ickenham to a relative's place in Eastcote.
Yeah.
He was driving the car, but he gave the camera to my mum
Mhm.
and just said, just point it out the window and film us as we go
Mhm.
along. So she's filmed all the way from Ickenham right over into Ruislip, and it's just filming out of the car. But this was like 1963.
Oh, yeah.
So if you look at it now, you can
Yeah.
see all of the changes that have gone on.
Yeah. Talking about your cutting the lawn, though, that was another area where gadgets and appliances were targeted in the garden.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I've still got a Black& Decker drill,
Have you?
which I bought in 1982, and it still works.
Black & Decker, Black & Decker, Black & Decker.
Yeah.
Not Spear and Jackson number 3.
It could easily have been. And I'm tempted to take a photograph of it and send it to Black & Decker and say, look at this. It's still working 38 years later.
P.S. Can I have a free sample?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was another gadget, actually, garden hoses.
Garden houses. Yeah.
Because we never had one, but it was portrayed as a little bit sort of middle class, wasn't it? People that had nice gardens with good shrubs in there that they really tended to quite carefully. you know.
Yeah, yeah. They've done their weeding.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It was always a mild-mannered looking man.
Probably smoking a pipe as he went round.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, God smoke a pipe, yeah. Looking content in his garden.
Yeah.
Oh, sprinklers as well.
Sprinklers.
The ones that used to revolve.
Yeah.
Because there was a ban, wasn't there, in 76 when there was a heat wave. They weren't allowed, were they?
Milton Jones, comedian,
I know him, yeah.
he said, I set up a company doing colonic irrigation, but the hose pipe ban hit us hard.
It paints some very unsavoury picture, doesn't it? The other thing, which, I mean, we didn't have one, but seemed quite posh, was to have like a lawnmower where you could sit on and drive it round.
Oh, blimey.
You know, one of those
Yeah.
and with a bin that collected the grass in.
That's right. Yeah.
So probably somebody must have had a light bulb come on above their head. These lawnmowers, they throw the grass everywhere, so maybe we can create something here to catch it in. But I used to see these adverts on TV for driving a lawnmower around. There'd be some bloke sitting on it and looking leisurely, One of the havens for selling like gardening tools and gadgets was a hardware shop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Stocked to the brim, it was like full candles type of place, full of apparatuses of some kind
That would help you.
that make life easier for you,
Yeah.
Talking about electrical appliances and that.
Yeah.
Some of the brands, I mean, Morphy Richards.
Yes. Electrolux.
Yeah, that was another one. Hoover, of course, Hot Point, Creeder.
Oh, yes.
Used to make washing machines and spin dryers and stuff. Philips did stuff, didn't they, as well? Of course.
Philips.
Yes. My dad had taken a fancy to buying a Philips cassette recorder. And the guy from the radio rental shop just over the road came round and demonstrated it to us.
Really?
And he actually sort of interviewed me and my brother
Yeah.
to record us talking. And then he played back our own voices.
Yeah.
I remember being a bit freaked out by it and not liking it at all. It was very uncomfortable.
I had a similar experience, actually. I went to a school friend's party, this boy, and I suppose I would have been about 5, 6. So this would have been 1962, 3. And his parents was obviously comfortable because his dad had a reel-to-reel tape recorder at that time,
Right.
which I'd never seen a tape recorder before. It's a new thing. And he got everybody at the party to record a little like birthday greeting. And then when my mum came to pick me up, he played it back, you know. I'd never heard my voice before. Well, you wouldn't, would you?
No.
I mean, I was fascinated by the technology, and I thought, oh, I wish I had one of those. That was a real gadget, wasn't it? And talking about consumer products, that was state of the art in the early 60s, wasn't it?
Oh, well, yes, it
Reel-to-reel
was.
tape recorder. I don't know what one would have cost in those days, but it's probably as much as a vacuum cleaner or washing machine.
Vacuum cleaner or washing machine, you probably get one second hand.
Second hand, yeah. Actually, we never had a washing machine. We had a spin dry and a spinner rinse, but they were bought brand new, or on HP anyway.
HP would have been the thing, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That was the way to buy all the expensive electrical stuff for the household, wasn't it?
Do you remember when pressure cookers were all the rage?
Yeah. I was always scared of those in case they might explode or something.
Yeah.
Because they used to make a noise, didn't they?
They did, with a lid on it, but it had a sort of like a valve.
But I mean, they were a real labour-saving device. They were a way of speeding up the cooking process, weren't they? So you prepare food a lot easier, couldn't you, for other things?
Yeah.
My mum wasn't really one for loads of gadgets. She used to do everything almost by hand herself.
Yeah.
You know, she had one or two things, but compared to a lot of people, she didn't, you know.
No.
So a lot of these things which are featured in adverts, I mean, they just really went over her head, you know. Things like Kenwood.
Kenwood Chef. I think we had a Kenwood Chef.
Did you? See, probably up until the 70s, there weren't really so many gadgets for food cooking and processing, were there?
Electric whisk.
Yeah. We had a hand whisk, like a rotary one with you know.
Yeah, we did. I remember my mum had a mincer.
Mincer.
It had a clamp, and she'd clamp it to the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And then you put meat in there, and you.
I remember those, actually. Yeah, I remember one. We had one similar to that for slicing runner beans.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you turned the handle and they went into a little hole at the top and they came out sliced.
Ah.
I used to enjoy doing that, you know. Mum, can I do it?
Of course, then you had the cheese grater.
Oh, cheese grater, yeah.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian James Acaster. He talks about the cheese grater, and he says that there's only one side of the cheese grater that anyone ever uses.
Right.
With the one with the big holes. He said the other three sides don't even know what they're for.
So it's not greater than the sum of the parts.
And that bit with the tiny holes and the little holes.
Yes.
The surface is so rough. I would only use that for self-defense.
Well, yeah. The thing is, like, that's probably like an older person's thing.
Yeah.
It's almost something that slipped from public knowledge, isn't it? The small one, the fine one, is for like things like nutmeg. It's great nutmeg.
Yes.
And I only know that because my mum told me that when I was growing up. Another gadget related to that. You used to see them at seasides. Somebody would set up a trestle table outside a hardware shop or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
They used to do like a demonstration and gather a little crowd around, and it was things like vegetable slicers and graters and like an apple juicer and things like that. They used to take the core out and things like that.
And they make it look so easy and effortless.
Yeah. He used to put it into this thing and the juice used to come out the other end into a bowl.
And the way they advertise them, you sort of look at it and you think, God, I'm going to have to get one of those.
Yeah.
How did I live without one of those before now?
Well, he used to stand there in a group of people, you know, and they're like street market vendors, you know.
Right,
so
yeah.
They got all the patter and everything.
Oh, yeah. Now, there's one. There's another one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, you'd like one of these, wouldn't you, lady? It's not £1. It's not 10 shillings. You could have one of these for
3 of these for a bob.
Yeah. We bought one in the apple corers. It's got like a corkscrew on it. It's a bit like the mole that comes out of Thunderbird 2, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it did work well, and it lasted a long time. Gadgets were built to last in those days, though, weren't they?
Yeah.
That was one area of the 60s, you know, where you got a lot of commercials and promotion for men's toiletries and shaving equipment.
Yes, my dad's eyesight was not very good, and so he used to do like a wet shave, and he said to me, I don't need to see my face. I don't need a light. I can tell whether I've got a smooth shave just by feeling my face.
Really?
So,
Just like
yeah.
that. My dad used a normal razor for the whole of his life. As a kid, I used to think, oh, they enough look dangerous, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't use an electric razor or disposable razors because they weren't really so common then, were they?
Well, no.
The one my dad had was just a standard razor. It was like a sort of T-shape, wasn't it?
Yes.
You'd put the razor blade in the top, and at the bottom there's like a screw thing. You'd screw it in, and the two little doors would close in on the razor blade, a bit like Thunderbirds.
The 80s, that was probably about the time when they brought in this ridiculous concept of like designer stubble.
Oh, yeah.
Well, all it is, it's not shaving. That's what it is.
You know.
It's not bothering. God help you if you came round our house on a Sunday afternoon looking like that.
Well, that perfectly illustrates how things have changed since we were growing up. You wouldn't go around looking like that unshaven, would you?
Oh, God, no. When you're 16, you're desperate to be able to shave.
That's right, yeah.
You really want to. And then when you can shave, you wish you didn't have to.
The old razors, they used to take a long time. My dad used to go through a whole rigmarole of going into the bathroom, and he didn't use foam or anything, he used soap and water to lather his face and that. But, you know, he'd probably be in there half an hour getting this really kind of precise shave, you know.
But do you remember the shaving brush?
Shaving brush, yeah, you see, This is another thing, you know, people started shaving, then somebody thought, oh, there's a market here for for a brush, you know, what people can put the lather on with, you know. Another associated thing to, like, electric shavers was the lady shave. Do you remember them?
Yes, Philips Lady Shave.
Yeah.
Was that underarm or...
They deliberately didn't
specify, did they? But I remember it being advertised on telly. I can sort of just hear my dad saying, oh, they don't know what to invent next, do they? You know?
Yeah.
You know, my dad would sit there in front of the television and he'd be watching the swinging 60s unfold in front of him. He'd just be sitting there kind of reviewing and criticising it all, you know. It's like, oh, that's another way of making money, isn't it? That won't last 5 minutes, or, you know, it's not worth that money or something like that, you know.
No. My dad, on a Sunday afternoon, he would sit down in his chair and he was going a bit thin on top. And he had this product called Vitalis.
Vitalis, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like a lime green liquid in a plastic bottle. And I used to climb up on the back of the chair. So I used to have to sit on the back of the settee, and you're supposed to rub it into your scalp and it would promote hair growth.
Does it work?
No.
I remember it because they used to sell it in barber shops when I was a kid. I used to wonder what it was.
And I'd be sitting there rubbing Vitalis into my dad's head whilst watching Cats in Pugwash. And then, of course, there's the stuff that you put on as well. So like Brill Cream.
Harry, your hair looks like it's just dyed.
Oh, my God. I can see the jar that it came in, like a round-shaped jar. Well, there was another one that came in a similar-shaped bottle, like a round thing. Bristow's lanolin.
That rings a bell, yeah.
I was just thinking, you know, life has changed quite a lot since lockdowns and everything. But whatever the situation is, you know, it'll always be that
somebody will find a sort of way of inventing new gadgets and consumer products, you know, to cater for the kind of like a changed environment.
Well, now you're talking about Victor Kayam, aren't you?
Oh, Victor Kayam, yes, I'd forgotten about him. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, you mean, yeah.
Entrepreneurs selling you useless devices.
That they made you believe you needed, yeah. What was it that he used to sell, Victor Kayam?
It was like a white plastic brush with a red velvet surface to it, and it had a little red arrow on the top, and you could turn it around. You would brush all the dust out of your coat, and then you would press the button in and turn it around, and you could put it onto another bit of material and brush out all the dust.
That sounds like another Ronco special, that does.
Yeah, or it might have been K-Tel. It's one of those.
I just thought of odour eaters. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
I just remember, my name's Victor Kayam. He used to speak to camera, didn't he, directly, you know?
Yeah, and I was so impressed with this, I bought the company.
That's right, yeah.
He wanted to do his own advertising, you know. But he didn't sort of invite confidence in me.
Because I used to think he was like a market trader or a snake oil salesman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I seem to think his stuff was to do with shaving and hair products and things like that.
Hair products were quite big, weren't they, in the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, but with men you had to be careful because They didn't want to seem like they were, effeminate.
That's right.
If men bought too many kind of like toiletries and things that made them smell nice, they used to get ridiculed by their friends,
Yeah, but if you had sort of like rippling muscles and like a really mean look on your face, then it was sort of okay.
But that's why they got Henry Cooper to advertise Brute.
Oh, well, they did, didn't they? Yes. Splash it on all over.
Talking about grooming age, though, home perm kits. Do you remember those?
Oh,
I mean, before that, women used to have to go to the hairdressers to get their hair done, didn't they? So they were quite a new thing, weren't they?
well, yes. And what was that horrible smell that accompanied somebody having a perm?
Twink.
Twink? My mum would have the occasional perm,
Yeah.
and there was this horrible smell that associated her having to do that. I don't know why.
It was revolting, I know, because my mum used to buy Twink. It came in a box, and she had a whole kit, and she used to lay it all out, and it used to be like a half a day job for her, to perm her hair. There's all the lotion, and she had to, she had to wash it first, and then she had to put this stuff on it. It had to be hot, and then she had to put it in curlers, and oh dear.
Oh, curlers, yeah.
It stank the whole house out. You can't describe what it actually smelt like. It didn't smell like anything else. It was a sort of, I suppose, a strong sort of chemically sort of smell, really.
Maybe a bleach or something in there, I don't know.
She had all the windows open and everything. It was so strong. I used to go out of the house when she did it.
When I was very young, I was quite wheezy, quite chesty, and my mum used to put these little things in my bedroom. It looked like a tin can, but it was a tiny little menthol vapor thing.
Oh, I know the thing, yeah.
And it was like a little fire. There was a flame inside.
Yeah.
But it would give off this vapor, just supposed to help you breathe better.
That's right, yeah. A menthol thing, I suppose, yeah.
Probably highly dangerous.
Yeah.
There's naked flames all around the house.
Yeah, that's right. It's like all the worst fears of a public information film all in one, isn't it? Probably if you look at any typical household in those days, if you've got all these household gadgets put together, they're probably a load of health and safety issues, attached to them all, aren't they?
Yeah. I'll never forget this. My brother, when he was quite young, he went round to see his wife's mother, and she said, "Can you help me? We've got this new vacuum cleaner." She said, "Put the thing in, wired it up, plugged it in, and it's just gone bang. All the fuses have gone. I don't know what's going on. Don't worry."
Good job, you've got a man about the house. I'll look after it.
So he opened up the plug and he said, "What have you done here?" And she said, "Well, she said, I twisted all the wires together and just put them in like you're supposed to."
Taking no account of the colours.
Take no account of the fact that you've got positive and negative on Earth.
Oh.
They were all twisted together.
She got away lightly then, didn't she?
Yeah. These days, circuit breakers, isn't it? Tends to be.
It's another gadget, isn't it?
Yeah, circuit breakers.
That's the thing. It's catering for demand again, isn't it? If you've got a circuit, then you need a circuit breaker. Just reminds me of kite marks, actually. They started putting those on appliances, didn't they, at some point?
Yeah.
It was a sign of safety, wasn't it? Probably just in time. A lot of things these days are becoming very self-contained. So the idea of getting gadgets to repair or support them is going to become obsolete eventually. There's going to be a lot less clutter, I think.
Yeah.
Just take, for instance, one area where there's a lot of consumer products. Filling stations. The shops on site are like supermarkets.
Yeah.
Loaded with gadgets directed towards motoring.
I think they make more money out of the food and drink than they do out of the petrol.
Yeah, I mean, one day people are going to say, "What's petrol?"
Yeah.
When the cars are all electric, there's going to be all these consumer gadgets geared towards motoring in petrol-driven cars, and they won't be applicable anymore. All those advertising campaigns and everything, you think, what was it for?
Yeah, I know. It's a mystery.
I mean, it's funny because in the 60s, there was this real burst of trying to sell you gadgets and lots of new things.
Yes.
But at the same time, people kept things much longer, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, of course. Back in the day, it was make to amend. You wouldn't chuck anything away until it was absolutely used to death.
Yeah, and that was quite encouraging in a way, wasn't it? Because despite all the pushing to try and get you to buy this, that or the other gadget, there was a resistance there. Whereas now I think we've completely caved in and we'll just buy anything that we're told to buy.
You see, that comes on to another thing, doesn't it? How much we chuck away now.
Yeah.
That's right. People have accepted the idea of being consumers, and there's no alternative to capitalism anymore. You know, I'm just wondering where it'll go.
I think that's the way to leave it. I don't think we should ever know.
And there we must leave them. Time to go home now. Why not pop in again soon to revisit some more old memories at the Time Warp Tavern. Last orders, please.